everyone, and welcome to VideaAI's Mic Drop, the series where we sit down with the very people shaping the future of dentistry. We uncover how AI is redefining care, streamlining operations, and fueling growth across the industry. Today's episode is all about the backbone of innovation, IT, and we're talking about how thoughtful infrastructure and strategy make AI adoption possible at scale. I am joined today by someone who knows this world very deeply, Kuzan Skruvala, VP of IT at Great Lakes Dental Partners. Kuzan, thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to have you join.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Absolutely. Good. All right, well, let's start off simple. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and basically what led you into IT leadership at GLDP.
Yeah, so Kuzan Skruvala, VP of IT at GLDP. A little bit about GLDP. We are about 28 dental clinics kind of around Illinois and Indiana, hence the Great Lakes. And we recently completed a migration from our EMR, which was Dentrix Enterprise, which is an on-premise environment. I was leading that project, and we started in November of last year, migrated all 28 over the course of a few months, completed in April. And then the world of possibilities opened up to us with all of the vendor partners, such as yourselves, that we've been introduced to. And I've been kind of running with those projects as well. And it's been really, really exciting and very transformative, even in the few months that I would say from the time we started our journey to even now. I can't even look back and recognize the road that we took. It's kind of awe-inspiring, honestly.
Yes, that's amazing. I know there's a lot of moving parts to it, and you got to have a great team, behind the migration and all of that. So it sounds like you really were well equipped to do that successfully. I want to bring in more of a personal layer before we dive into that strategy and really what you experienced in that phase. What excites you most right now about working in dentistry and technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I've answered this question a lot, coincidentally, over the past couple of months. What excites me the most is, and I love putting myself in the patient's shoes because I am a patient. I consume the product too. So when we consume traditional healthcare as patients, and what I mean by that is your actual primary care doctor, we have become accustomed to a certain level of accessibility. I can interact with my doctor. I can see my x-rays. I can see my ultrasounds. I can see my prescriptions. I can pay bills. Epic, right, is what most hospitals end up using. And that's honestly what I'm most excited about. Dentistry, from what I can tell, now this is my first forte into healthcare, but not my first forte into IT. I've been in the industry for about 25 years. But that's what excites me is I think dentistry is now finally catching up to, with the help of technology, is finally catching up to that patient experience by leveraging technology. We're also be able to provide better healthcare, right? With the introduction of AI, you can kind of forecast, predict out. You can become more efficient, and every step of the way. It's not just, at least as far as we have seen at GLDP, and obviously we're somewhat strategic about our partners, but every time we infuse technology into the mix, it's with the patient experience in mind, and it enhances it, and it makes everyone's life better, right? The hygienists and the doctor providers and the back-end administrators as well. But I think that's what I'm most excited about, is the evolution of the patient experience.
I love that. I think that at the end of the day, that's one of the most important components of it. There's a lot of other added benefits, right? AI specifically is designed and intended to improve the patient experience, and it seems like that was a core focus of yours. I really wanted to take the opportunity for today to just kind of talk through or think through the IT blueprint for AI success. And you're touching on this already, but what were some of the core priorities you were thinking about, as you decided to adopt AI across GLDP? What were the most important things that you were considering sort of as that foundational framework before you dove in?
Yeah, so I have to be completely honest and say some of this was,
honesty is good.
yeah, some of this was just good timing and good luck. I don't want to make it seem like we've always had a crystal ball. The main ethos for our transition from enterprise to ascend was the cost saving analysis, right?
Okay.
And provided us a lot more advantages, but it was very, very tactable, and there were very clear tangibles. Then as time progressed and we started to realize what, again, to Henry Schein One's credit, who they had partnered with in turn, as well as their native functionality, what the art of the possible was. I think that's when we started to like, oh wow, there is this entire ecosystem that is now growing behind the scenes that we can take advantage of, and now is being presented to us, behind this single pane of glass. So I just want to be clear, like it would be very awesome if we had the vision and the foresight to say, like, we're doing this because of AI specifically. And so just a little bit of background, and then kind of fast forward to today. Yeah, we already kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. It's all about it's about the patient experience. It's about enhancing our standard operating procedures. It's about providing more options to both the providers, hygienists, back-end administrators, as well as the ultimately the patients. It's about security. It's about, I mean, it's everything that you can imagine, right? It's
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it's not about, because that's almost easier to answer. It's not about what most people would consider the induction of AI to be, which is like elimination of jobs. We haven't
Yeah.
seen that.
Yes.
That's the one thing we've actually been like, we've been steady. We've had no attrition because of the introduction. If anything, what we found is people are more excited on both sides of the fence. But let's just talk about it internally. The producers and the hygienists, they find their lives to be easier, more productive, and they can do what they were meant to do, which is like focus on the patient experience and provide the patients the best in healthcare, the best service that they can. Like if you talk about voice perio, if you talk about being able to have a layer above the radiographs that help identify and then bridge that communication between the doctor, hygienist, and the patient, they're able to understand now without the complicated lingo, just because AI is there. It's easier to kind of answer what it isn't doing, and
I
that's
love that.
eliminating jobs.
I
Yeah.
think you just, you just called out a lot of general misconceptions about AI and what it is intended to do and what it is not meant to do. And I think that's really helpful for any DSO, regardless of size. Thinking about that from a broad perspective, it is there to help, support, and reinforce and save time and make things easier. It's not there to replace jobs. It may seem that it's very expensive or a very overwhelming task from a back end consideration. But it seems to me that, with all things falling into place, the right team, the right strategy, it is not a huge undertaking. And the benefit is worth exploring that technology to help foster, better clinician diagnosis and patient education, and then that patient experience and journey, like you mentioned. Does that seem
and
feasible?
and internal doctor education. I think the other thing that it's allowed us to do is, especially again for a multi-site clinic DSO practice like GLDP, when we go through M&A, a lot of the times we are, and take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt here, but we are beholden to the doctor that was already present, and it's very interesting, right? So you look at a clinic as part of a M&A process, and it's got great EBITDA. But a lot of times that could be tied to that high producing doctor. And if that doctor makes an exit, even if he's obligated contractually to stick around for a little while, if he makes an exit, he kind of takes that with him and goes away. And all of a sudden your production takes a nosedive. But with the introduction and infusing of these AI tools, we feel a lot more comfortable in our ability to ramp up, because there's a flood to market of a lot of like freshly graduated doctors, right there, that are riddled with debt, that want to come in and want to provide the best in class, but they don't necessarily have those 20-25 years of experience of being able to look at a radiograph and be like, oh yeah, that's just a shadow, it's not bone loss, or whatever the case is. I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm in IT, but you get my meaning. And so we can bridge that gap a lot faster with those tools. because, with the few doctors that remain, and look, we've done a lot of things that have also helped us make successful. I don't want to just say like AI is this magic bullet. We have a DAB, which is a doctor advisory board that we wrap around all of our providers. We have a HAB, which is a hygiene advisory board that we wrap around all of our hygienists. And there's standard, there's SOPs in place, and we have a doctor, we have a VP of doctor education, and we have a VP of doctor hygiene, and all of those roles kind of all, it's like a multi-piece puzzle that fit together. AI is a piece of that puzzle for sure.
You just answered one of my next questions, actually, which was how IT specifically.
This was not staged.
Listen, I mean, you're really taking my role here and just rolling with it. So no, I love that. I was going to just kind of think through how IT could partner with, operations, clinical teams to make sure that the AI that you've, implemented is actually fully operationalized and adopted, and not just, we flip a switch, it's turned on, good to go. So you just described building out sort of departments within your ecosystem that can help, guide that adoption and drive just that consistent use. But think about it from more of your IT team. What were some of the things that you did initially to communicate or just to have that alignment in that process?
Yeah, I'm going to go a slightly different direction with this, if that's okay. I think what I've found. So here's the reality of the world that we live in. IT no longer has a monopoly on technology. It is beholden upon every single department to become technology experts. And so in saying that statement, it's interesting because I actually think the lines get a little blurry and almost disintegrate entirely, where IT also become operational leaders. At the same time, operational leaders become technology leaders, and everyone, again, like, at least I can only speak for GLDP, we all share the load equally, and that's what I think leads to success, right?
Yeah.
It's not, we don't have these isolated silos anymore, which in some senses is good, right? I mean, you don't want somebody in sort of a pure clinical role necessarily dictating cybersecurity policies, right? I get that part of it, but
you don't want somebody in IT dictating diagnosis and patient care, right? But they're all valuable to each other, and they all support and build up one another.
Exactly. But at the same time, I would say the traditional roles of IT have become blurred. I find myself being in a pseudo operational role. At the same time, I find operations being able to articulate very clearly their technological needs and deficiencies, right? So it's an interesting, I prefer this, to be honest, because I think everyone benefits from it. Everyone gets exposed. It's a more well-rounded experience. And so that didn't necessarily answer your question, but it's a tough one.
I think you did. I think you kind of carved out sort of a new view and a segue into some of the other things I want to think through. Examples of the processes or workflows that have completely changed as you've implemented VideaHealth, for example. What are some of the things that you can speak to, if you're able? Are you hearing from the clinicians and the teams? Are you seeing things visually that you hadn't had before in that patient journey, that patient experience? Can you speak to anything along those lines?
Yeah, so we adopted Detect AI as part of Henry Schein One's native offering, which is a layer that sat over the radiographs, and we are also now consuming pretty much all of your products, right? We're using Huddle, we're using Insights, we even now are using RCM claims. But I'll just kind of go through each one. So for the Detect AI piece, I think we've seen an uptick in overall patient experience as well, and that's on the patient side, as well as on the internal side. We've seen an uptick in patient acceptance, right? Because we're able to, as I mentioned earlier, bridge that gap a lot easier. Whereas before, and I've been a victim of this as well, where the doctor will kind of like, glance over the radiograph and be like, oh, you see that? That's bone loss. And I'd be like, oh, okay, sure. But now, right, it's clearly highlighted, it's clearly illustrated. And like I said, you're able to like bridge that gap relatively seamlessly. So we see an uptick in patient experience and an uptick in patient acceptance. The other side of it, like Huddle, I think has promoted a standard behavior of a better team building, a clarity in everyone's work. And I think, look, as long as it's even in my signature, as long as there's a plan, even if it's a bad plan, nobody freaks out. The moment there's no plan, that's when everybody's like, ah.
That's where we have a problem. I
Right.
love
And
that.
so Huddle kind of, and not that Huddle gives you a bad plan, by the way. I'm just it's more of a analogy, but Huddle brings, I think, everybody's together. There's clarity in the day. Everybody's clear on what they're doing. And again, everyone's like well versed. Again, I keep saying patient experience, but because you meet in the morning, because you know what your patient stack looks like, and because you know what the opportunities to you are presented ahead of time, when that patient walks in, you're not having to like jog your memory because you've already been sort of prepped and ready of what it is you're going to be doing, and what conversations you need to have.
Yeah.
And kind of, sorry, there's so much to talk about. So
Keep going. I love it.
I suffer from verbal diarrhea, so you can cut me off whenever you want.
Hey, we can stay all night, so go for it. I think it's great.
The other thing I think that has been the wow factor, like when we demoed VideaAI, especially to our DAB and our HAB, as I previously mentioned, is the feature functionalities that have become commonplace and almost expected in other medical arenas, which is patients now have the ability, with the introduction of the QR code, to take that information, and it's patient education. It's their radiographs at a click of a button, at a scan of a QR code, and it ingest it at their comfort and at their speed. We've all heard this, whether it's buying a car, if you're trying to do a root canal, like, hey, I'm going to go home and have a conversation with my partner. Do it, and absolutely, and take with you this whole stack of information that we previously weren't even able to come close. Like, I mean, yeah, we could have printed out the treatment plan, but this is like from the start of it to the end of it, it's the treatment plan, it's the educational material, it's these radiographs, and it's all on one, single pane of glass, and that improves their patient experience, which in turn improves patient acceptance, right? And so every single facet, and then like insights is like a no-brainer, right? Insights is like the reporting piece, and I'll give you guys credit where credit is due, because there's a lot of technology companies, AI companies, but let's just call it technology companies because AI gets bastardized a lot. There's a lot of technology companies that come to market with a silver bullet, and it's a quick solution and a fix to one unique problem. I think where you guys excel, and what makes me excited to partner with you time and time again is you have a more holistic view of the industry as a whole, right? It's not just this is our one trick pony. It's you're constantly evolving and you're constantly expanding beyond the scope of what made you successful, right? Which is great for us. And so, which brings us to insights, because not a lot of organizations focus on the reporting, and GLDP, at least a couple of years ago, made a very, concentrated decision that we will not be run by feelings, and we will be run by data and data alone, right? And having insights and having that valuable data and seeing who is using the product and seeing what the opportunities are. And again, it's as much of a administrative tool as it is a coaching tool for us, right? And then again, that jigsaw puzzle comes into place where our VP of Doctor Education can sit down with our docs and say, hey, what happened here? And the docs that did great can then share their success stories with the others across our 28 clinics, right? So having that information, I feel like, leads to those organic conversations. I'm gonna hit pause on myself, because otherwise.
No, that I love that. I think that I mean, thanks for the shout out and the kind words there. I think this is exactly what we intended to do, and this is exactly why we love partnering with DSOs like GLDP. You kind of touched on something that I want to cover now, is just future outlook. What are the looking ahead the next couple of years? What do you think is the biggest opportunity for AI specifically to help change, what you're doing and your objectives, but also dentistry as a whole?
Oh boy. There's so many ways we could take this conversation. I could tell you what the immediate one is, right? Because this is like fresh in my mind. And again, speaking specifically of GLDP, although I think with a relative degree of confidence, I think what I'm about to say is something that plagues the industry at large. It's not something that GLDP suffers from uniquely, and that's RCM, right? And
Yep.
It is for us a very convoluted stack, right? We have our insurance verifiers, we have our insurance collectors, we have our claim submitters, we have our payment processors, we have our collections agency. All of that fits into the umbrella of RCM, and all of it is disconnected, and none of it is integrated, and all of it is manual. And it is probably
you just called out the problem for so many, and it's almost like, how do you wrap your brain around this? This is really the reality in our space. It's very challenging.
It is, and RCM is critical, right? You can have the best patient experience, and you can do all the procedures in the world, but if you don't collect, hey, guess what? There's no GLDP around, sticking around for too long, and all those technologies, they're gone too. So yeah, it is probably our single largest expense on a monthly basis. Obviously needed, right? We have to get the income that we've generated. But I think that's the sort of short term, even I would say midterm hurdle that if we can get over, it'll just free us up from the cost burden, from the process burden, and the from as far as we can tell, like the insurance companies are already ahead of us, right? We're fighting the giants. Like they've already got their bots working on claims denials. So we're kind of behind. We're like behind the times in that regard, right? So we're fighting manual processes against probably processes that are already automated.
You shared that you're utilizing the claims AI. What did you hope to achieve with that specifically? It sounds like more of the elimination of the manual process, and whether that's a baby step to eventually solving the RCM crisis, if you will. What prompted you to try that out, and how's that been working for you so far?
So before I answer that question, I think I need to set the stage of GLDP's ethos in this new day and age. So when we migrated from Enterprise to Ascend, whereas historically I would have said all of our relationship were the traditional vendor and customer, when we moved into this SaaS environment with Henry Schein One, Dentrix Ascend, we quickly realized that there were, again, this is not to cast aspersions on them because I think they do a lot of things well. But when we first adopted Ascend, there were a lot of deficiencies. There were a lot of shortcomings. There were a lot of gaps. That was the downside. The good side is they have the agile mentality. They have sprints, and they're very, very quickly, even though they're a behemoth and we're not 1,800 clinics, we're like 28. They are able to hear us and adapt to us and evolve with us, and very quickly provide to us those feature functionalities that we find to be critical. And that's what I was kind of talking about. I don't even recognize where we started from because we've come so far in such a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all of this to say that in all of our vendor partnerships, Henry Schein One, VideaAI, we have evolved with the times, and we are no longer vendors and consumers. We are partners.
Yep.
And that is a very, very key difference because we're not going to survive this journey alone. And I'm not going to take a whole lot of credit, but neither are you guys. Maybe not specifically with GLDP, but you need your partners in the field, in the trenches, to be able to provide you realistic feedback, to give you guidance as to where the product needs to go and evolve. So that's the all that was the prequel, right? So now to answer your question, what we want to get to, what the pie in the sky is automation, right? Is remove the manual processes, and get it to a point where we are for the straightforward claims, being able to submit them with 100% accuracy, with zero rejections and denials. I think where we are today is, I don't want to say far from it, but it's not there. And the objective, I think, is to partner with you guys to get it to that stage, right? So we have a great, as much as I want to say that it's a complicated process and an expensive process, it works, right? Yeah. Our rejection rate is 0. 100% of our claims get approved, but it's time consuming. So we have that side of it down. Now we're working and partnering with you guys, hopefully to bridge that gap, to keep the accuracy, to keep that piece of it, but then gain efficiencies and optimize it by automating it or leveraging AI to, transcribe the treatment plan or whatever the case is, right? That'll speed up the process. And it's incremental, right? It's crawl, walk, run.
Exactly. That's the power of innovation. We'll partner together. We'll understand, what's driving you, what the needs are, and we can solve these problems together as we enhance the tool to really meet all of those needs. That's awesome. Krizan, we have just a few more minutes. I wanted to just ask blandly here, what advice would you give other IT leaders who are, thinking about this or trying to future-proof, their own infrastructure for AI? Any advice?
Yeah. Yeah, perfectly candidly, I mean, it's not for everybody, right? You have to take a good hard look at your organization and make sure, because the last thing you want to do is introduce a technology at the wrong time, right? Because it could. I mean, we've gone through this. I don't want to name names because I don't think that's the point of this. But when we were on enterprise, we had an imaging vendor partner. But it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right fit, and it wasn't the right partnership, right? It was that traditional vendor and consumer relationship, and it failed abysmally, to the point where when we were approaching you guys and for this product, we were very guarded because of our past experience. And so I would say understand your business, understand where you are in your evolution. I think it is easier to adopt it in a multi-site DSO type setting than it is for a single doc practice. Not to say that it isn't. I just think traditional single doc practices, they wear a lot of hats, and I think I don't think you need a technology expert, because, like I said, I think the lines have been blurred a little bit. But I think it in its current iteration, I don't think it's as easy to implement in single clinic practices. Multi-site DSO.
You'd be surprised. We have some great single doc practices utilizing it. Everyone is different, right? But to your point, evaluate your business. Ensure that you have the right fit in your internal teams and processes, as well as that partnership model. Those are important criteria for any IT leader, any DSO, or any individual practice looking to explore or implement.
And I would just kind of build on that. The other things I would say, and I touched upon this earlier, is don't focus solely on the technology aspect of it, right? And I kind of mentioned this earlier. Look at the product as a whole, and do not underestimate the importance of data, right? Because without it, you're kind of flying blind, and it's hard to then prove out the ROI and prove out the benefits. That it could be cool and flashy, but make sure you're looking at as a whole comprehensive passage. And the last thing I'll say is be patient with it, because it is ever evolving and ever changing. Because what may not be a working solution for you today will very quickly change. Like I said, where we were in November is a far cry from where we are today.
Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you. Krizan, this has been such a fun conversation. I thank you for, really pulling back the curtain on how, your team, IT, is powering growth and innovation behind the scenes at GLDP. Where can our listeners connect with you or follow along to see what GLDP is doing?
I don't really have much of a social media presence, so I would say go to our LinkedIn page. Gosh, my VP of HR is going to knock me over the head for not having this all ready to go. Our website and our LinkedIn is about as much as I can give you right now.
We'll help direct our listeners to the right spot so we can follow along. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to VideaHealth's Mic Drop. Stay tuned for more conversations that will explore the future of AI in dentistry. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.